Okay, so this is a video I've been meaning to do for quite some time, and that is talking about what's the best rootstock for California. Uh, this right here is a Turpentine rootstock. This is my oldest tree. It's over 20 years old, if you could believe that. The trunk circumference is about 15-16 inches. There's a Kirkland water bottle just for size comparison. Just wanted to note, in California, turpentine does not do well here. I would not recommend it. There's some few occasions where people have had good success on it, but from what I've seen, they pretty much usually fail. They don't have the vigor to do well in California. They seem to also, when they at least kind of are growing, lots of the limbs are a bit floppy. Uh, for the most part, I think if you do end up growing a turpentine, it probably does much better in a pot. I think the heat might helps it a bit. I mean, there's lots of theories on why turpentine does badly here. I mean, there's people say it could be the climate, the soil, the water, lots of various reasons. I personally think that turpentine doesn't do well because our soil is a bit colder than, say, Florida, so that kind of limits its vigor. In addition, our cold, wet winters, when we get cold, wet soils, seem to really hurt the trees. So that seems to kill off a lot of trees. So you get plants that lack vigor and rootstock that doesn't handle our cold, wet soil very well. If you must grow one, I would recommend growing it in a pot versus in ground. Some of the potted trees do does do a little bit better. Okay, so this tree right here is over 20 years old. It's probably struggled for most of its life. Most of the limbs, this was originally a non-Dokmai 4 tree. I've grafted over quite a bit of this last year. There's not much of the non-Dokmai 4 left. This is kind of being used right now to kind of preserve some of the varieties I have, just a place to graft it. But lots of the limbs on anything turpentine, it tends to be weepy. They don't really grow up that quickly. So for the longest time, this tree was about 5 foot to 5.5 foot tall. It didn't really start doing that well until I would say the last 6-7 years. And the reasoning for that, I'm not too sure, but that's when the seedling next to it right there started really taking off. So I think there might be some sort of root grafting happening. The other thing is this is being grown in clay soil. Just gonna keep note of that. So this is a turpentine rootstock that's over 20 years old, grown in clay soil. The seedling next to it, that's about half the years. I think it might be like 12 years old, and it's much larger than this turpentine rootstock. Okay, so that's my opinion on turpentine rootstock. So this is another turpentine rootstock tree. It's over 20 years old. It's about 5.5 foot tall, and this is grown in sandy soil. It has not been productive at all most of this years, so that is not the reason that has kept the tree short. It's just that it's very weepy and bush-like. So it's about 5.5 foot tall, and compared to the other tree, it's grown in sandy soil versus clay soil. So that doesn't seem to be what's causing any growth differences in the turpentine. This is a Thai variety, and this year was very unusual as this is the first time it's blooming this late. This is in October and it's blooming. So that's the first time we've seen this. And over the last 20 years, it never really produced any fruits, not like nubbins or healthy fruits, you know. So just an example of turpentine, of another turpentine that lacks the vigor, growing in sandy soil versus clay soil. So this is an Ataulfo rootstock in clay soil. So this is my second oldest tree. In comparison to other trees, it has quite a huge trunk circumference, and in comparison to the turpentine, this is a beast. This tree has a circumference of about 31-32 inches. There's some water bottle just for size comparison. As you could look, it is quite large. I am in the process of top working it, but here it goes. That's the tree. From my own experience with the Ataulfo rootstock is that they seem to handle the winters are much better. They're a bit more vigorous. They are slower to start than, say, the Kent seedlings, but they consistently grow and do well. So this is the Ataulfo rootstock. Those are the yellow mangoes that we get imported from Mexico here, that you find at the grocery store. The yellow fiberless mangoes. And this tree was planted, I would say, about a couple years after I planted the Turpentine rootstock, in the Turpentine rootstock that I have in clay. This is another Ataulfo rootstock, and you know, I had quite a long experience with Ataulfo rootstocks. I like them over Kent rootstocks, for example, but the ones you can find the fruits in at the store. This one was in a very unusual situation where we planted it in the ground, and later on we decided to create a raised bed. So you could kind of see all this pavers. What we're doing is trying to keep the dirt from kind of filling up too fast and cover up the trunk. It's been over 7 years since we did that. Initially I thought it was gonna die and this probably give it a better chance, but I still thought it might have died. So you take a look, here's the raised bed that we did, and we kind of try to carve out this piece and not get the soil to cover it too fast. I think the soil is still building up little by little, but it didn't just completely cover it at the same moment. So it's been 7 years since we did that, and you can imagine during winter lots of water kind of fills up in here, and amazingly this Ataulfo is quite alive and doing quite well. Again, Ataulfos, one of my favorite rootstocks. I think they handle the cold and wet winters that we have in Southern California better than Kents, and definitely better than Turpentines. So this is another Ataulfo rootstock, and as you know, Ataulfos are polyembryonic, so that's why you see these two trunks. It was one that I never did get a chance to separate out the plants, so we just planted it all together. As you can see, this is planted on the north side of the house, so it doesn't get a lot of those intense sun, so the bark looks a bit smoother, but it is still Ataulfo. This is another Ataulfo rootstock. This one is much younger than the previous one I showed. Probably planted about maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years after I kind of lost track of the timing on some of these rootstock. But here you can see for size comparison. Another Ataulfo rootstock. So the rootstock I'm talking about next is what I call, or most people would call, the Verne Manillas. This is the Manillas that you are able to find at kind of your local big box office stores. We're talking about Home Depot, Lowe's, Armstrong. This is how it looks like in terms of the tag when it shows up for Home Depot. Some of the tags in the prior years were different. This is how it looks like now. These 6 plants I bought it at early spring of this year. I bought it early spring. It's about October right now. As you can see, it's grown quite well. My largest one right here, it's about a 5.5 foot tall plant. So this Verne Manila is what most people here in California calls Manila. It's not a true Manila. I just want to make that point straight. This is not the real Manila. The real Manila is most likely the Cowbow. It's a mango from the Philippines. It's a very little fiber fruit. This is a very fibrous mangoes. Lots of times it produces nubbins that has tons of fibers, but it makes one of the best rootstocks here in California. The other Manila, sometimes people call Manila, is what is the Ataulfo that I had shown you guys. Those Ataulfos are the long yellow mangoes that you find at the supermarket. It's readily available with those yellow mangoes, and the Kents are two that are readily and easily available in the supermarket. Lots of times people call that a Manila also, but again, that one is not a Manila also. So both of these rootstocks that are commonly grown here in California, which we call the Manila, is not the true Manila, but they make really great rootstocks. Okay, so this is my plants and pots I have right now. I'm going to show you guys in a little bit my in-ground plants and show you how it's doing. In 2019, I planted out 8 Verne Manila plants to be used as rootstocks for future grafting. They all end up growing quite well. I had one very vigorous grower and one kind of little bit of runt, but that runt has kind of caught up to the others now. But I planted out 8. These are all planted in sandy soil, but the Verne Manila does well in both sandy and clay soil. It's one of those plants that's really available, and everybody usually have very high success with it. It's like lots of family and friends, they all have this. It doesn't really matter if it's in clay or sandy soil, they all do really well. So this one is the trunk of one of mine. I will go ahead briefly and cover the rest of them. This one's another trunk. This is my largest trunk out of that 2019 planting. It's doing really well. You guys often see it in my videos. That's how it looks like. Here's the next one. Okay, doing well. This one actually ended up setting out another trunk. I shouldn't have let it grow, but at the time I was still kind of just still experimenting now and seeing how it does. is the fourth one. I'm going in the same order that I usually go when I'm reviewing my California mango trees, when I review the 8 trees. So this is just a more up close look at the trunk. Here's what I would call the 5th tree. You guys see this quite a bit in my videos. This one was actually the runt. It was slower to get going than the rest, but it's quite taken off now. I mean, I grafted a ST Mari that was so vigorous that I think that kind of helped get this plant kind of catch up with the others. So this is my 6th tree. Okay, the 6th one out of 8. This is the 7th tree out of 8. Again, I'm going in the same order that I usually do my review of my 8 rootstock Verne Manila trees. So you guys probably seen this one quite a bit on the other videos. Okay. Okay, and this is tree number 8. So this is tree number 8 of the Verne Manila rootstocks, all planted in 2019, all planted in sandy soil. Right here, what it looks like. And lastly, I will be talking about my Kent rootstock trees. Last year I planted out quite a few of them. I would say about maybe 7 or 8. I would have to go back and take count. Unfortunately, I lost quite a few of them, and I am not sure if it's the combination of just being the bad weather that we had here in early 2023. The winter was pretty horrible with lots of rain. It was just very unusual weather. But Kent itself, I've never really had great luck with them. They don't seem to really like the cold, wet soil, at least in my area. One of the reasons why I have so many mature Ataulfo trees is that they survived in my clay soil. But my Kents never did survive. So these are Kents in sandy soil, planted out last year. I'm going to show you the 3 survivors that I have. So I'm still kind of up in the air about Kents. I'm not really sure if it's a great rootstock, but that's just purely my opinion on it. I know some people have had a lot more better success with it. But I've never seen a mature Kent tree versus like seeing a lot of mature Verne Manila trees around and some Ataulfos. I have never seen a Kent seedling that is a mature one, so there might be a reason for that. I'm not sure. This is purely kind of subjective when I'm talking about the Kent mangoes, as I'm not very sold on it as a good rootstock, but I'm going to show you 3 trees that at least they done well and they survived this winter. So this one is a cack mango on a Kent rootstock planted in sandy soil. So this is a Kent rootstock. It's grafted with a creme brulee, planted in 2019 and in sandy soil. And this is the 3rd Kent rootstock planted out last year in 2022 with the rest of them. This is a Kent rootstock planted in sandy soil, and it's a Kessar. Unfortunately, this Kessar took quite a big hit this winter with all the unusual weather we had. Had quite a bit of dieback. It was actually the size of my cack mango that I shown previously, but it had quite a bit of dieback, and I realized that at least this section of the yard gets a little bit of light frost in the early mornings in winter, so I'm sure that definitely didn't help. Okay, Kent rootstock, my third and last one, planted in sandy soil.